My name is Dolores Elizabeth Medina. My friends call me Lolita, and I'm owner of El Farol Mexican restaurant. I'm the third generation owner of the restaurant. My family came to Utah back in the early 1900s. My grandfather came to work on the sugar beet farms. At that time, the U.S. was at war and had lost a lot of the young men that used to work in the fields. So they would send buses. These companies would send buses to the border offering jobs. And so my grandfather, wanting to better his life and probably feeling an itch to travel, boarded one of those buses. And he tells the story that it was really, really hard work. My grandmother, also escaping the revolution, came to Utah with a Mormon family. And she was kind of like the house cleaner, the cook. And she ended up here in Utah, staying with that family in the beginning. And then she and her sisters were called to LDS Mission, and they served the Mexican immigrants, teaching to them, and that's how she met my grandfather. And my grandpa and his friend ended up becoming LDS members and baptized, and then they later married my grandmother and her sister. Now, my grandmother was given a talent for cooking. I guess she had an entree into the hierarchy of LDS society because she worked in these big houses and got to know their members. And what surprises me about her is that in her broken English, she didn't view that as a barrier to talk to these people. She knew apostles of the church. She knew the Relief Society president of the time, Belle Spafford. And they would come because they would come to her house because she cooked traditional Mexican food, and they had traveled, or they would find out that she was such a good cook, and so they really enjoyed her food. My grandfather went to go work at the Hotel Temple Square as a busboy for a while, but then after a while my grandfather wanted to do his own restaurant. So in 1945, he started a Mexican restaurant called El Charro, downtown Salt Lake. I hadn't seen it because it was many years ago before my time, but it was around 2nd South. Later on, my grandfather left that restaurant to his son Ray. So here in Midvale, Utah, he saw an old Frost Top or Dairy Queen, I don't know what it was before, and he asked about rent, and so the landlord said he'd take a chance on my grandfather, and my grandfather opened up. His first day, he only brought in 50 cents. Wow. I wonder how he felt that day. He must have been a little discouraged. Mm-hmm. But back then, this is 1967 by then, and little by little people would stop by and try it and enjoy it. This was before salsa was a trend. Salsa really didn't start picking up until 1985, what I remember. Mm-hmm. But people really enjoyed his restaurant. I remember it was really hard back then to get Mexican products, getting jalapenos, getting Anaheim chilies. My grandfather would get a rancher to come and bring him his crop once a year, and then all day long my grandpa would be roasting and peeling these chilies and freezing them for the rest of the year. So people would stop by and try things, and then the word of mouth would go out, and they would bring their friends. We have so many customers that have been with us for 3 generations, and they would tell their friends, and their friends would tell friends. And then also my grandmother, being like a pioneer in the LDS community, they would tell people involved in the LDS church, and then they would tell people. And so this became like the stop here in Midvale. We were visited by many apostles and prophets here in our business. We continue to have 3 generations of customers. Something I realized during COVID was that so many people, their history is interlaced with ours. People had experiences, like so many people would come and tell us, we want you to stay around, we want to make sure that you're still in business, because I remember going to that little place across the street, and I would sit at the counter, and Josie, the older waitress, would come and bring me cheese chips, and she would always be so nice to me. Or you guys used to have little radios at the table that we could put a quarter in and it would play our music or watch TV or something. Or my grandfather used to come and love coming to your restaurant. So many histories are interlaced with ours. About maybe 5 years ago, maybe less than 5 years ago, we had some customers come, and I asked them where their dad was, and they said that he had died in an accident and that they were coming here to have comfort food. And I had never thought of Mexican food as being comfort food, other than just us Mexicans thinking that. But now Caucasian people think of this as comfort food. We've had so many people come, for celebrations or even for passings. It's become almost like their second home coming here, just because of all those memories. But my dad decided to continue, and so my grandfather gifted him all the equipment, which was still in working order. And my dad picked this spot here, 115 West, 7200 South, just across the street, and we set up here. And it was a good move at the time. State Street was getting really busy, and we needed more space. We needed parking space. And it was the 90s, and Mexican food was reaching new heights here in Utah. New Mexican restaurants were opening all over the area, but with our history, we had kept a steady clientele. And I learned many important lessons from my dad. I'm sorry he's not with us anymore, so every day I feel him near. He taught me honesty. He taught me work ethic. He taught me how to treat our employees like family. I think that's one of the reasons why my employees have stuck by me, because that sense of family, that sense of safety, that's so necessary with a business, especially now. My dad was such a good man, and he would research things a lot before making decisions. My mother, she started cooking when she was 8 years old, and she brought with her talent also to this restaurant. So my mother came into the business, and she put together all those recipes again and added a few of her own. It felt like each generation has added something to this business. I used to think of myself as just carrying on a legacy, just following in my dad's footsteps, just trying to do everything the way he would do them. But I didn't realize that each generation adds something to a business. And then me, I'm sure my dad would have loved one of his sons to carry on with his restaurant, just because. But then when nobody else was left behind and I stepped up to the plate, he felt assured. And before he passed away, he said that he was so happy that I had taken over the restaurant. Every time when he was no longer able to work and he'd come with my mom, he'd always say he was so grateful that we continued on. And so I feel that in my heart. Native Americans have a belief that inside every woman is a piece of generations from before, and I honestly believe that. I feel those people with me every day. Like during COVID, I felt like we were going to lose our business. For our restaurant to lose 30% of their business, where margins are so slight. I was at a point where I could have just closed my doors and walked away and try to reimagine my life somewhere, some other way. But things would happen, and I only can say that it was probably my ancestors from beyond saying, don't give up. Keep on going. People, customers, like I was talking about before, they would remember their experiences here at this business, and they would come and donate generously. So many experiences, like someone donated over $2,000 of Coca-Cola products. Like my sign up there, it says, your purchase today saved 16 employees, 15 families, 5 college educations, 7 dogs, 2 cats, 2 geckos, 2 birds and fish. This mini community has hands in the rest of the community. We provide success for the rest of our community because my business is still around, giving employment and mentorship to others. It's helping people with families. Their kids might come to work for me in the future, or it's helping them get education so they can take professions out into the community. And that's largely, I'd say 95% of my staff is Hispanic. We're helping the community, whether we realize it or not. Each generation, like, for example, I don't know if my grandfather thought about future generations when he came to this country, but whether he realized it or not, he provided an open door for success for the rest of his legacy. I want to thank my husband because he was with me every step of the way. When we decided to purchase the business from my parents, he was right there with me. When my parents needed help and we needed to care for them, he was there with me. He held my hand when my parents died. He's held me at my most vulnerable moments. He's allowed me to be a successful and powerful woman. He's also picked up the slack when I wasn't able to be home. He's been there for me when most would have just left or gotten fed up or intimidated, and he's been there. And I want to thank my children that their mom wasn't normal. She had to be in the business all the time, and I missed sports events, but yet they still love me and they support me and are here when I need them. I want to thank my employees that have stuck with me through the thick and thin. Maybe I've made mistakes as a business owner from time to time, but they've forgiven me or worked with me or understood. And I'd like to thank my extended family also that have always supported me and always felt proud of me. It makes a difference when you know there's someone there. So thank you everyone, including my customers. Thank you.